Movies are ridiculous. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, it's just the truth. Case in point, think the original Star Wars. Everyone on the planet loves the original Star Wars, and why wouldn't they? It's a timely classic with a timeless tale of good versus evil and an amazing John Williams score. However, step back for a couple seconds and really think about the concept for Star Wars. It's actually, in the words of Han Solo himself,
it was weird. It was very, very weird.
Think about it. Han has a dog for a co-pilot, the main villain is a guy with a broken scuba tank, these ships can travel light years in hours, and a religious farm boy teams up with an old geezer to destroy a Nazi space station. Obviously that was exaggeration, but the fact remains. Star Wars, as an idea, is pretty out there. In fact, it's not just Star Wars. There were a lot of far-out movie ideas ranging from every genre and decade, but yet, we never question it. We might even take it so seriously in some occasions that we get irritated when something doesn't fit. But why? Why do we do this? If you have studied film at all, then you're at least probably familiar with the term verisimilitude. For those who are not in the know, verisimilitude comes from two Latin words. Verum, truth, and similis, similar. What it refers to is a film's quality of creating a reality. Important distinction though, this does not mean that the film is realistic. Quite the opposite. It means that if a film has done its job well in captivating your attention, that you will accept what you see on the screen as fact.
It's real. Where's all the paint?
You don't need it anymore. This is your world now.
Basically, a good consistent story and tone with parameters to follow might go a long way for your audience investment. The situations that we see, the characters that we meet, and all the interactions between them all help to create verisimilitude in a film. It defines the rules by which the characters act, the fictional world operates, and what is and is not within the realm of possibility for this movie. But I know what you're saying, but sir, there are so many types of movies out there. How does this work across all of them? Well, we have to start with a base. Science fiction and fantasy might be different genres of cinema, but they do share one fundamental similarity. They have elements that are completely contradictory to everything we know in our current world.
Why are you doing this to me?
To show you just how much you don't know. Open your eyes.
This could be one key aspect of a film's diegesis, such as the existence of aliens with foresight and arrival, or it could be an entire diegetic world, such as the entirety of Middle-earth in the Lord of the Rings series, whether they be its inhabitants like the dwarves and elves, or specific locations like Mordor's Mount Doom. Nevertheless, the central point is this. These beings, concepts, and worlds are things that cannot be observed within ours. Even if it takes inspiration from it in some fashion, what we see on screen is not present in any way for us to observe in the real world.
Something, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
As such, we as an audience need to come to grips with the operations of this universe. Who are the main players here? What is the society like? And what are the general rules that need to be followed? Whether shown through world building or given through exposition, establishing the basics of this new diegesis is important for building verisimilitude. This is present in plenty of sci-fi and fantasy films. Seeing the rundown dystopia and replicant androids of Blade Runner, bearing witness to the business of the Greek gods in Clash of the Titans, or being provided the context for the Kaiju Wars and Jaeger program in Pacific Rim.
But the Jaegers were only as good as their pilots. So Jaeger pilots turned into rock stars. Danger turned into propaganda. We got really good at it.
To further illustrate this, let's go back to our original example, Star Wars. As mentioned, this world in concept is quite ludicrous, but the film does put in some good legwork into showcasing its diegesis. We see a diversity of alien life forms that are present within this universe and how they relate to humans.
Han Solo. I'm captain in the Millennium Falcon. Chewie here tells me you're looking for passage to the Alderaan system.
We are given the adequate political context behind the film's events.
The regional governors now have direct control over their territories. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station.
We get to understand how the Force works and see it in action.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
And we understand the threat of the villains. This understanding is also boosted from the strong performances of the entire cast, from Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher to James Earl Jones and Peter Cushing. The end result is a film that the audience can get invested in and believe in what's happening on screen.
You know, I did feel something. I could almost see the remote.
That's good. You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Obviously, traditional fantasy and science fiction use their unnatural elements to create a sense of awe. But what if you wanted to create something more mysterious, something more intense? While every fictional film exists to entertain, horror and thriller films create their own unique entertainment value and audience investment by way of, well, horror. Their main purpose is to create an atmosphere that is eerie and not fully comprehensible to the sensing mind. Think of the demented appearance of the Cenobites in their dimension in Hellraiser, the inexplicable nature of the house in The Deep House, or the paranoia felt by the research team in The Thing. Most horror relies on the vagueness of understanding to create a scary environment, which wouldn't be possible under traditional science fiction or fantasy rules.
We have such sights to show you.
However, while their exact presentation may vary, there is a common tactic that all good horror relies upon to create verisimilitude. Less is more. To put simply, put forward a simple concept, one that can be understood, but do not initially elaborate on that in any way. That way, the audience can be put in the same situation as our characters, enough to know that something is wrong, but not enough to immediately solve the problem. Fear comes from what cannot be understood.
Tasty, tasty, beautiful fear.
However, just as is the case in real life, the more time one spends around something, the more of its nature we learn. You gain resolution regarding the situation you were afraid of, and this is something that can be applied to horror movies to create a believable resolution. To establish verisimilitude, it is within reason to enable the story to uncover information that will enable our protagonist to escape the terror.
I know the secret now. This is just a dream. You're not alive. This whole thing is just a dream.
One case study that can be easily observed with these verisimilitude rules is The Ring. The film's given concept is an understandable one. Watch this VHS tape, and you will be murdered in 1 week by the spirit of a little girl.
You start to play it, and it's like somebody's nightmare. Then suddenly, this woman comes on, smiling at you, right? Seeing you through the screen. And as soon as it's over, your phone rings.
Off the bat, little additional information is given to help the protagonist. No idea is given to her origins, what makes her so vengeful, and why she inflicts her terror in this specific method. Naomi Watts' character, Rachel Keller, has to confront this terror as it is tearing apart the very world around her. Using her journalistic skills, she has to begin to make sense of the situation, which helps her understand the mystery, even if it doesn't make it less disturbing, eventually enabling her to leave, albeit only after so much harm has come to others.
You're gonna be okay. What about the person we show it to?
So we have established how verisimilitude can bring sense to a film, but what if a film is one that inherently lacks sense? If verisimilitude is meant to establish a sense of reality within a film, then comedy and parody films are the only genre that appear to run antithetical to it. I mean, can you explain this? Or this? Or, well, you get it. Films like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Monty Python Life of Brian, or Austin Powers appear to lack a whole lot of sense, for their sole purpose is to create humor, or dark humor, out of an outlandish situation. Scenes like the ones pointed out only work because it is laughable that a situation like this can even happen in the first place.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow? Yo! I knew it, I'm surrounded by assholes.
However, if you really think about these films, there are two components that help build verisimilitude: a familiar space and a sense of screw it. Basically, something that audiences are familiar with, whether that be a certain story or location, and a willingness to test the boundaries of reality for it. And what better film to analyze this through than Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Now stand aside, worthy adversary. 'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't. Well, what's that then?
While upon an initial glance, it seems like the film is just defined by one insane moment after another, and narratively speaking, that's true. However, regarding the first requirement of a familiar setting, Monty Python actually plays upon a widely known tale, the Arthurian legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. This age-old tale is a large part of popular understanding of medieval times and the narrative of a hero's journey. And the film does present this consistent quest as a vehicle to get to its humorous set pieces. This gives us some basis of reality as to the background of the film.
I am Arthur, King of the Britons. My liege. Good Sir Knight, will you come with me to Camelot and join us at the Round Table? My liege, I would be honored.
However, as stated previously, the narrative has a strong sense of screw it, which Monty Python boasts to an extreme extent with many nonsensical moments. Just looking at a few of the many examples, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that the French soldiers can easily launch a Trojan rabbit over their castle, the bridge keeper is not immune to his own questioning, and that the group of knights escaped the cave monster as a result of a fourth wall convenience. All of these scenarios are hilariously ridiculous, but none of them feel out of place within the film because its boundary limit was established as non-existent through its playfulness sense.
Your Knights of the Round Table shall have a task to make them an example in these dark times. Good idea, O Lord. Of course it's a good idea.
The end result of all of this is that the audience can adequately check their brains at the door and accept the film for what it is. a fun and humorous satire of the Arthurian legend. The entire film is comprehensible through this lens, as easily as counting to 3.
No, so much bit swallowed.
Well, you have to know these things when you're a king, you know.
So, there is a lot going on for verisimilitude. Every film has to put in the legwork to make their films believable, but this might look radically different depending on the type of genre of film. A more grounded film will be able to utilize a lot more real-world elements to make its product more relatable, whereas something that's more unrealistic might have to put in some extra legwork to contextualize its more unique elements. Sometimes you might have to limit the context you give, or even have none whatsoever, depending on the mood of your film. Nevertheless, in all these circumstances, creating believable context through the set world rules and steady characters is vital to maximize audience engagement with the film. Simply saying, it doesn't matter, it's all fictional, isn't right.